coverage of the 24 Hours of Daytona is brought to you by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution, and by BF Goodrich TA radials, built for you to take on the road. And by Coors Light, the Silver Bullet. There's no slowing down with the Silver Bullet.
All right, our thanks to Lanny Grubbs for putting together the preview pictures of what we're about to see here. Now, Jim Busby is standing by with his onboard camera to take you for a wild 210-mile-an-hour ride around Daytona. It's all coming up. We're ready to go racing. Stand by for the 24 Hours of Daytona. For powerful personalities. The greatest field in the history. 24 years of the running of this race is on pit road. Let's go to Chris Economaki.
I'm down here by A.J. Foyt's car. He's about to put on his helmet. AJ, 3 times is the charm. You think you can pull it off a 3rd time?
I think we got a good team, we got a good crew, and I think we can. We're just going to try to stay out of trouble and wait till tomorrow, till about 12 hours in racing and see where we're running.
AJ, you got 3 Indianapolis car drivers on the team. No experienced road racers other than yourself. Is that going to make a difference?
Well, they're pretty experienced. They ran pretty good on the Indy cars on road courses, and if they can do that, they can drive these.
You look calm and cool.
Well, I feel pretty good. You know, like you said, 3 times is real hard, but that's what we're here for.
Okay, good luck, A.J. Foyt, and now across pit road to my colleague, Jerry Darrett.
Well, thanks, Chris. I kind of like the 24-hour race. It's kind of an excuse to stay out all night and party like grad night in high school. It's kind of fun, but a responsible party with an opposing viewpoint. Series champion Al Holbert. You don't like these very much, Al.
Well, you got to remember, we're not 16 anymore, that's for sure. And no, I'm not real keen on these long races. But it's a wonderful way to start off the Camel season, and we're going to look for a real hard long race.
Well, he's not exactly sour grapes. He hasn't won this race, but he has won the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Bless us through the excitement of this 24-hour race. Amen.
Let's take a look right now at the course these people will be facing for the next 24 hours. Bill Adam will take us around inside the VF Goodrich car and give us a viewpoint.
We're approaching the start-finish line, a GT prototype, flat out in 5th gear, getting prepared to drop down through 4th, 3rd, and 2nd for a very tight left hand that leads into the infield course. Extremely hard braking at this point, being very careful not to put your car in a precarious position with cars cutting back across in front of you. This is a short straight just coming up right here that'll lead down to a 180-degree right-hand corner on the infield section of the track. One which requires a very delicate throttle application. We're playing with 800 to 900 horsepower here, and you can easily get sideways. Back up into 3rd gear in this straight, into 4th gear with your foot still flat on the floor. Through this gentle left-hand bend at something in the neighborhood of 165 miles an hour before we get under very, very hard braking. Back down through the gearbox into 2nd gear for the tightest corner in the track, a tight 180-degree right-hand corner. Hard acceleration again into 3rd gear for a brief second before setting up for a 90-degree left that'll lead us onto the banking. This is very critical here, as we want to carry as much speed as possible, not having to get off the gas and thereby lose a turbo boost, and carry this momentum up high onto the banking. The slower cars, the GTO and GTU class cars, are told to keep low at this point, leaving that top lane for the much faster GT prototype cars. Down the back straight, we're approaching 200 miles an hour at this point, getting set up for very heavy braking, where we'll be dropping down to 3rd gear and going through a chicane that was set up here. Just a brief left and a right flick, hard on the gas for a second, off for a little bit of a slide, and then right back to the floor as we enter the banking again. Back up into 4th gear, finally reaching 5th gear, and the speeds will be approaching well over 200 miles an hour at this point, leading onto the front straight, which is the fastest point on the track. The top GT prototype cars will be at 210, 215 miles an hour, approaching what they will hope to be the checkered flag.
We'll be back after this
commercial message. It's coming now, the 24 Hours of Daytona, live here on the Superstation. 1986, 24 Hours of Daytona, with a Hendrick Corvette that set a record of 129 miles per hour. Now out of the race with transmission problems. The new pole sitter is car number 86. This is the Bruce Leven car of Redmond, Washington. The co-drivers, Ireland's Derek Daly and Bob Wollek of France, a former winner. Going to the to the second starting position. It'll be car number 16, a Porsche 962, Ron Dyson's car, former SCCA champion, with Drake Olson aboard, now takes over in the second starting position with the elimination of the pole sitter. Drake Olson, the 85 sensation, is in that car, and so is Price Cobb out of Formula Atlantic competition. Coming next on the grid is car number 0, and this is Moretti and Barilla. And Barilla was the driver that won at Le Mans last year. Randy Lanier, the 1984 IMSA champion, is also in car number 0. Next on line, car number 5, the Bob Akin car, and Hans Stuck, one of the very fastest drivers out of West Germany, a world champion in endurance competition, is in that car along with Joe Gartner. Up next is number 67. Our onboard camera is here in the BF Goodrich car. And from Laguna, California comes Jim Busby. Along with Busby for this race is the 23-year-old, 5-time winner last year in GTO, Darren Brassfield. He's out of Los Gatos. And also the Formula One star from England, Derek Warwick. Next in line is the other of the team cars, number 68, John Morton, 44 years old. What a story. He's won 8 IMSA races. He's back and ready to go today. Germany's Jochen Maas, the great Formula One star, and also in that car is Jan Lammers of Holland, a Formula One driver. Moving up for the next position, it'll be Thierry Boutsen of Belgium, and he will combine his talents with Segalza in the car number 3, another Porsche 962. The 14 car, still another 962, and it's all 962s up front, is the defending IMSA champion, Al Holbert. And with him is the 3-time Le Mans winner, Derek Bell. Al Unser Jr., runner-up in kart racing last year, as the 3rd driver on that car. Going next in line is the 12-cylinder Jaguar. And here we have Chip Robinson assisting Bob Tullius, the team manager, the organizer of this team, and the Frenchman Claude Ballot-Léna, the 1983 Le Mans winner. Further back in the field, we come to the number 45. This is the Buick, John Paul Jr. And with him comes Chip Ganassi, the IndyCar driver, and Ivan Capelli from Italy is there. Beside them is the second of those Buick 6-cylinder cars, and the 27-year-old driver from LA, Whitney Gans, has been assigned here along with Ken Madron, and we should see some real action here. Bob Loganberg is in that car as well. The field just beginning to roll down pit road. The second Jaguar is next, number 04, 12 Daytona wins for Hurley Haywood, one of the all-time champions. And with him comes the 76 and 81 winner of the 24-hour race, Brian Redmond, and Australia's Vern Chupan is here today. He's an experience in everything. Next, another 962. This is car number 8, and here we have A.J. Foyt, Danny Sullivan, and with them for this race is Lyondike, the kart rookie of the year, Ari Lyondike in the Preston Hen car. There you see Preston bottom there. A Porsche March comes out next for today's race. And these are the Leon brothers from Texas, and with them is Jim Fitzgerald out of North Carolina. Going further back in the field as we continue our lineup, we have a Chevy March coming next, and that is Jimmy Leeward out of Ocala, Florida. With him is Bill Adam, who will be one of our reporters today. He's going to take over some, and also Emery Donaldson, originally out of Daytona Beach. Bruce Jenner starts next, and that's the first GTO car in the race. And with him will be Scott Pruitt and Klaus Ludwig, the 76 decathlon champion in that car. Next on line comes Tommy Riggins, Steve Millian, and Elliott Forbes Robinson in the second GTO car, a Pontiac Firebird. Next in line, 17th overall on this grid, and there have been some changes now in the last moments with cars not getting an opportunity to start. Lou Price, Jim Mullen, Carson Baird are going. Then the Porsche March is up next. That's the Johnny Hotchkiss car. Jim Adam is with him, and Costas Loss is also a driver of that car. Further back in the field now, we look and we find the GTU first car out will start in 47th position. Roger Mandeville with Denny Smith and Diego Fables. In 50th position is the second GTU car. That's Reed Kendall. And then in the 51st position, the car that really put a show on here last year, Amos Johnson's car with Dennis Shaw and Jack Durham. Now, for the stock car folks in this race, the 24th position is the Mustang with Bill Elliott, Kyle Petty, Ricky Rudd, and Ken Schrader going to work. And in 26th position, the Olds of Phil Parsons and Harry Gant, along with Terry Labonte. There you see the Pachetti car that's going to be in here. They're getting set to go as we continue to roll on through the field and get set for a start here today in this 24 Hours of Daytona, the 22nd running of the event. Field is now up on the west end of the speedway. This is the highest bank on which these cars run anywhere in their 18-19 race schedule. 31-degree bank. Then it's down that long back straightaway, wide open to a chicane which really makes you whoa them.
And one of the problems, of course, with this race is starting at this time of the day in the winter again. As you go into that west banking, you have a real problem with the sunshine. And as you come up off the east banking, under where we're here, across the start-finish line, that sun gets very, very tiring.
And David, right here we can talk about just how difficult it is to come down from those tremendous speeds. Just about the hardest braking place on the track.
Very hard indeed. And you can see the shape of the chicane there. You can see where the line goes right to the edge of the road. And this is one of those places where at night it's very difficult because it's very flat and featureless. It's hard to pick it up. Difficult at night.
Let me point out to you that the green colors on this grid are Camel Light cars. The black is GTU, the red is GTO, and the prototype cars are in blue. That's a GTO car that you see there. That's the over 3-liter cars, the under the GTU, and the Camel Light cars. There were only 6 of them here last year. And remember that they had that tremendous run that started midway in the race with that little red wagon of Downings coming from last up to second place in his class. And that car will be something to watch in that Camel Light series. Jim Downing's car.
Well, the Camel Light's become a very popular class. It's much cheaper than the big GT prototypes, and of course with so much more television now that Camel GT Racing is getting, of course it's worth sponsoring.
Willie Ribbs, you've been down here for some time practicing a NASCAR Winston Cup automobile for later this year. Your feelings about running those high banks?
Well, you know, I'm normally a road racer, but now with me in NASCAR, you know, it's a whole new world coming in to running NASCAR on the high banks. It's 31-degree bank, and you got to really know what you're doing because they're all high speed.
Green this time by, and we will be away. 70 cars were expected to start at the last moment. The pole sitter was canceled out. 3 other cars have canceled out, so we're coming back down in that number towards 66, perhaps even 65 as we get a count coming to the line.
The more out, the better if you're a driver. Not so good for us, but much better for them.
Last year, there's one of the cars that's just come out. His car number 89 has fallen by the wayside before it even gets underway. One of the Porsches coming down for the start. The field under green, and the 24 hours of Daytona is away. Twice round the clock on this 3.5-mile course. 9 turns through turn 1. Turn 2 is directly in front of the scoring stand. It's actually the second part of this wide sweeper as you come off the super speedway part of the course.
Great deal of discipline required at this part of a 24-hour race. Willie's used to driving the Trans Am cars where, you know, you've got to get the thing 1 in 100 miles. You tend to take chances in that type of racing. In this sort of racing, there's absolutely no point in taking a chance. But when you're in charge of an 800 horsepower car, it's kind of hard to tell the driver, don't take a chance.
Well, it's hard to, you know, because, you know, your adrenaline's flowing. You want to get out and get racing with people, but you know you can't run too fast because you got 24 hours.
Live on the Superstation, WTBS. Start of the 24 hours of Daytona. 22nd go, up onto the banking for the first time. Beginning to unlimber, and this is the one time when you don't want to get over anxious out here.
Well, that's true, and young Drake Olson from Connecticut's got a good lead already in his first lap in his Porsche, and of course he's obviously very thankful that the BMW is in the truck on the way to Michigan, because he knows that by now he'd be about that far behind us.
Again, Cyril van der Merwe, who qualified at 121 miles an hour with the Hendrick Corvette. They had transmission problems. They had gone through 2 transmissions by yesterday. Today they developed another problem in the morning practice, and the car will not start. And that's a terrible break for American racing fans. They were hoping with Doc Bundy aboard, he was telling me yesterday, to get in 3 hours. Anything over 3 hours to them, they would deem a success, because that's as far as the car would run. Not to be the case.
Very potent car. I drove that car 2 or 3 times last year, did a lot of testing and development for them, and it's a tremendously potent car, and that Chevrolet V6 has got a good future in this sort of racing.
Olson builds up a tremendous lead, and now you're with the Jim Busby car.
Smoke coming out of Bob Akin's car already.
Bob Akin's car is pulled up into 3rd place. Hans Stuck aboard in the red number 5, and now you're inside of the BF Goodrich machine as it goes through that 1st and 2nd turn, heads for the International Horseshoe. There you see the flags of all the competitors in the race. There you see Akin's car. Bruce Levin's machine has gone up into 2nd.
That is Terry Boutsen's car in the pits, I do believe.
Boutsen's car down. We're back inside with Jim Busby. This team, of course, had a 1st and 2nd place finish, Riverside, California, 1 year ago. The 67 car continues to gain a little ground on those 2 that fight. Bob Akin's car, the red automobile, 962. getting challenged a little out here.
This is one of the things that IMSA Racing has got going for it. That is that we have a full-scale tyre wall. Goodyear, of course, being the predominant tyre out there, but Bridgestone are on that second-place car, and of course the Goodrich cars, in which is our camera.
And Akin's car is
and
on.
of course Akin is on the Yokohama tyres. Yeah, and here's somebody else coming into the pits. An early, looks like a pretty serious casualty too.
Number 02 pulls on pit road. Problems on that car will eliminate it from the 20. Well, actually, they have enough time. If it's a head gasket or something, they can get themselves back in here. That is the Creeder car that's coming down. That looks a little more serious than some.
Yes, it does. It could be just a simple thing like an oil line blown off, but it could be more serious than that. And here we see Drake Olson coming out to complete his second lap with an enormous lead over Bob Wollek, who I'm sure is playing it cool. Bit of a dogfight there for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth spot.
The third place car at the present time has been switched around and coming to the line. I think we'll see
Paolo
Moretti.
Barilla has passed the Hans Stuck car. Stuckey here,
back to fourth.
World Endurance Champion, and obviously trying to get his IMSA, 86 IMSA season off to a good start.
Dave, you know, I think some of these guys are going out and trying to establish a pace here, you know, and then once they get into a groove and try to hold it there for the endurance, you know, the race of the race, you know.
Of course, there is a lot of cars to be lapped, so if you can make up some sort of a lead early on, once you get into traffic, it can help you to pull away from that lead too.
The Leon car, the number 2 car, is now on pit road, and we're watching the number 67 closing up on the Akin machine. Here comes Al Holbert down the inside, making a pass. Holbert in the 14 just sweeps up underneath and takes a position.
Al being a bit of a brave boy in a 24-hour race doing that. Especially when 67 was lining itself up to pass Busby. There's a great camera shot of the Holbert car. There's a go up at the back.
Well, Holbert knew that was a camera car. He just wanted to get in front.
Holbert gave it a heck of a shot last year. He had a great season, won the IMSA championship, but was not to be in this race. After 23 hours, he fell by the wayside. They needed just another hour. Look at Busby pull up and give it a go down that back straightaway. Here they come. Hard braking corner left is next.
And Busby now decides not to try and go past Holbert. Pretty wise move there. If you get pushed off, it's very rough. And these cars, unlike a NASCAR car, people are used to seeing NASCAR cars spin onto the grass and then carry on. Unfortunately, with these fragile, expensive races, you can't pull tricks like that because it pulls all the bodywork off and the car's pretty well finished.
Scheduled for 962s to draw away and start this race as Drake Olson, number 16, continues to build up a lead. Bruce Levin's car running in second, and the third place car is the Moretti car. The Moretti Lanier car has gone into third.
Ken, Drake Olson was one of the surprises last year in IMSA GTP racing. He really came on strong. He really made his name last year, and he's starting out this year the same way as he left off.
He came from nowhere. He came in his very first GTP race was Lime Rock last May, and he won it. And they're all taking a bit of a detour there. It must have got very, very slick in that infield corner.
Watch. Let's see if we get a pass right here as Al Holbert is moving in on number 5. He may try to pass him right now. Closing up. Al Holbert getting in, closing down on the Hans Stuck car. Tries that inside. He made a move before. Not successful for the moment. Let's see what happens when they draw out onto that 31-degree banking. There goes Holbert taking another shot at that position. You're watching the fight for fourth place live here on the Superstation in the 24 Hours of Daytona. Here they come onto the banking and down to the inside. It is Holbert making a move as if he's going to try and pass here. He comes to the bottom, pulls back up, rides the slipstream.
Just like the NASCAR cars, of course, you can really put that draft to use. But of course, you don't have that long back chute to maintain it. You have to keep stopping for the corner.
Here they come, down for the chicane.
Already getting mixed up in lap traffic too.
You've driven with and against Hans Stuck many times. He's tough to deal with.
Well, he and I drove together in a BMW back in 1981, and yeah, he's a very flamboyant man and a very flamboyant driver, but he's got tremendous car control, great skills.
Hardest braking point of the track is turn 1, where you enter the infield portion of the course. We may see Holbert take a stab right here.
Well, they're both going past that Zach's car, the German-sponsored Joest car, the winner of Le Mans last year and the year before, and it looks like they're both going to try and take him on the high side as they go into turn 1. A favorite passing place here.
You're watching the battle for third and down to the inside, trying to sneak through Holbert, not getting there.
And Barilla not letting either of them get through.
It's a wonderful scramble for third place.
You see, this is the trouble. It's very narrow there. They're getting caught up in lapped cars already, and Jim Busby is right behind Holbert again.
through the International Horseshoe. The battle continues for third position. And we'll be back with our continuing coverage of the 24 Hours of Daytona after these messages.
Speedway, tremendous battle raging for second, third, fourth, and fifth positions in the early running of the 24 Hours of Daytona. We're watching it now from the in-car camera being carried by Jim Busby. A lot of split-second accuracy demanded of these drivers here. We're going to be talking a lot more about the fact that timing is everything in a 24-hour race. The 125-year-old Hoyer people are offering a tag Hoyer micro-split stopwatch in this event. You see a lot of these on pit road. This is how the drivers and crews keep track of things like interval. Right now it's split seconds between those second, third, fourth, and fifth place cars. We're going to watch for timely maneuvers throughout this race, some to the better and some to the worst. And we're going to award the people who make those maneuvers these stopwatches. And when it's all over, we're going to have something very special for the driver or perhaps the crew member who makes the most crucial move that demonstrates that timing is everything in racing. The Hoyer people keeping track of the time here. Let's go back to that battle for second, third, fourth, and fifth in the early running of the 24 Hours.
Jim Busby's cars, the BF Goodrich Racing Team, giving us these dramatic pictures. He is closing up again on the Al Holbert car. Meanwhile, the Akin car has fallen off the pace more with Hans Stuck aboard. Look at this battle continuing. That's Al Holbert, defending IMSA champion. Had just a tremendous year after a very shaky start here at Daytona. Here we are getting the Jim Busby car. We're being told Derek Warwick is at the keyboard of that machine. It must be a thrill. You know, we're so used to seeing the driver on the left side of the car sitting on the right side of the car on these banks on this racetrack at 200 miles an hour.
Well, of course, normally for road racing, the right-hand drive is the way to be, but this is a backward circuit. It's a left-hand circuit, yeah, and you're right up close to the wall, and those little frail machines, plastic bombs. I'll tell you what else is happening too. Right behind our man with the camera is the Jaguar. One of the Jaguars is catching up very close.
Tremendous scrap going on here. Look at Holbert really having to try and shake loose of the efforts being made.
Well, Derek Warwick, of course, is one of the best Formula One drivers. Somehow this year in the shuffle he seems to have got left out, but it's good for him, sir.
Let's go to Chris Economaki.
I'm in the Dyson pit, the leading car, number 16, with Drake Olson at the wheel. He's opened up a 5-second lead on the field, and that's a bit of concern here because everyone says a 1-minute 50-second lap is the way to do this. He's turning 145, 144s. However, Olson is running his own pace. They've told him to run a pace that's comfortable for him and comfortable for the car, but they didn't think it would be this fast, this early. Back to you.
Well, there you see the lead car, and for a moment he was in trouble there. He threw it all the way to the outside and then picked it up again. Olson leading by 10.5 seconds here.
That's a pretty good lead this early on, and if he's comfortable, though, that's the thing. As long as he's confident that he's not overstressing it, overstressing the brakes, making a hash of the gear shift and so on. I mean, if that's the pace he wants to go at, it's better to leave him at that than try and force him to slow down.
Well, Dave, it's good to have that 10-second cushion because when you get into traffic, you'll lose a second. You might lose 2 seconds. So if you have a nice cushion, you still got, you know, enough space to stay in a nice lead.
He's better off, of course, pulling out the lead on his own than those other guys, too, all racing each other into that traffic, which is when it gets really hairy. You know, you suddenly get yourself blocked out and...
Yeah, and then when the lap car puts on the brakes early, then you're banging into each other.
That's right, and he's got time to
Drake Olson, who won 3 events last year, now leading the early moments. One of the real sensations. And he's using up a lot of curb here as he ricochets around this thing with a very...
I saw that little move there by Mr. Olson. If I was him, I'd be a bit more careful. This is a 24-hour race, not a 24-lap race.
Well, it's daylight still, and you know, when nightfall runs in and they start running the headlights, they're going to be a little bit more cautious.
Not being very choice of car number 16, the lead car by 10 seconds. Drake Olson in second is the Bruce Levin car. Al Holbert's car maintaining the 3rd position now. The 4th position, Derek Warwick, is in the Jim Busby number 67. And then up to 5th comes the Bob Tullius Jaguar. The number 28 car, the Soul brothers, are out of competition already. The car that was entered for Harry Gant and Parsons, Terry Labonte, their car was off the track a lap ago, trying to get that one fired and back underway. Here's your leader closing on one of those Camel light cars. Now, the light cars look like the big prototypes, but they run a smaller engine. They're not allowed to use turbo power. And it is a way of getting into prototype racing without spending the mega bucks that have to be utilized to run a car like number 16 or the Busby car or any of those front 5 overall.
Well, you know, we got light beer, light cigarettes, and now we got light GTP.
Here's Jerry Garrett standing by. Thanks, Willie.
Thanks, Ken. We've been surveying some of the teams down here that are running in the top 5, and everybody seems to be pretty pleased about the way things are going. Akin's team wasn't concerned about that early smoke we saw. A.J. Foyt's team, though, they seem to be having some kind of handling problem. They're jiggling the car out of the banking. The thing doesn't seem to be going right, and they've fallen back in the top 10 quite a ways. The cars that are moving up, the cars that are real happy, are the Jaguar people. Watch out for them.
Well, there's Drake Olson continuing to pull away. Handsome young guy who really put it on him in 1985 and is getting off to a very nice start here in 1986. The first event for the International Motorsports Association. From here, they move on to the Miami Grand Prix and then to Sebring, one of the famed races on this International Motorsports Association circuit, which has pretty much taken it away from the World Endurance Series over in Europe.
I haven't won at Sebring either. It's another one I haven't won. There you see.
You have a long record of races you haven't won.
I've got a heck of a long race record. That turn one there has been modified in the last 2 years, and really for the 24-hour race, it's not a very satisfactory corner. It jiggles around a couple of times, and it's all guardrail, and it's a tricky little corner to negotiate.
Oh, it's a little tricky in the dark because there's no lights
It'd be
out
very
there.
tricky in the dark, yeah.
3.56-mile course over which they're hauling these machines, and you're watching the 962 out in front, number 16. Olson first. The Bruce Levin car is running currently in second, and maintaining third, Al Holbert, the IMSA champion, who just kind of has David Hobbs' luck in this event, trying to turn it around here and win this 24-hour race.
Well, I wish him luck. Here we see Drake. In fact, that red car in front of him, the red and white car, that's car number 50, driven by your actual one and only Bill Elliott.
Bill Elliott, who ran with Lynn St. James and turned out some great laps in GTO competition last year.
Yeah, at Watkins Glen. In fact, he set fastest lap during the race at Watkins Glen in the GTO race. And the NASCAR guys are here because they want to get road racing experience.
And that number 50 is leading in GTO. In the GTO class, Elliott is first. Jenner is second. The Cord Aussie car is in third. Here's Dave Despain at the STP Pit Center.
Put himself in very precarious positions under braking particularly, and bouncing the car off quite a few curbs, and it really could spell an end to the car very early for no other reason tire problems doing that.
The crew talks about the fact that they're perfectly comfortable to let him drive like that. If you were the crew chief, would you try to rein him in, or would you let him have his head?
I think I'd want to slow him down a little bit just based on what I've seen, but of course they don't have the good visibility that we do with the benefit of the television. What they might be doing, looking at the sky, it appears there could be a possibility of rain. And of course, if you've got a 10 or 20-second cushion to play with, it really helps you when the bad weather comes.
What happens if it rains? What develops then?
You'll see different strategies evolve. Some of the teams will keep their drivers out on the dry tires and hope that it's only a brief shower. Then they don't have to go through a 2-pit stop loss of time, whereas others will come in, make an immediate stop for rain tires and try and get back out and take advantage of the good tires.
On the dry racetrack, as we watch from the in-car camera and see the action, on the dry racetrack, they run tires with absolutely no tread. If it rains, they have the option of coming in, and they almost have to come in, don't they, if it rains very much?
Yeah, it's just like driving a car on bald tires on the street when it rains. You have very, very little control, and it takes almost an inordinate amount of precision to drive without having some sort of an incident.
We see the masterful control of Jim Busby as he threads through traffic here. Quick update, the Brune Motorsports Porsche, which was one of the favorites here, came in very early. Terry Boutsen is having to replace the alternator. Terry Labonte's Oldsmobile has a lubrication and oil system problem, and they're both on pit road. Back to you, Ken.
All right, you're still with the BF Goodrich car. This is Derek Warwick at the controls of this 962, which is very tender to the handling.
Well, you can see his hand there flashing on the wheel. These are very tight corners here, and it requires quite a bit of luck to get round them all. And you can see his hands there, as you would say, playing the keyboard in this 962. A lot of precision required. If you put a wheel over the edge, there's big holes which can cut tires and make a bit of a mess of your car. So you've got to get the car in the right place. Now, right here on the banking, that car is developing a couple of 1,000 pounds of downforce plus the centrifugal force, so the steering at this point is very, very heavy, right where we're looking now.
Here they come into the hardest braking portion of the course. Let's watch him as he comes in here. This is Derek Warwick in car number 67, closing in on the Al Holbert car. They dart in around through traffic into turn 1. What track conditions worry you most out here, Derek?
Well, yeah, I mean, the conditions are obviously tough when it's raining and at night time. In particularly, you know, you've got a lot of very slow cars now, or a lot of cars that are a lot slower than you. That's the biggest danger. You know, running continuously is not a problem, but avoiding the other cars is a problem.
The thoughts of Derek Warwick as we continue our battle here in the 24 hours of Daytona. There's the leader going back out of turn 6 and up onto the 31-degree banking at the west end of the Daytona International Speedway. Interval now stands at 15.5 seconds. In the GTU class, Mandeville and Smith are leading over Johnson and Shaw at the present time. In GTO, it's Elliott, Kyle Petty, Ricky Rudd, and Schrader's car out in front. And overall in this race, you're watching the number 16, Olson, Dyson, and Cobb's car leading over Bruce Leven, with the Al Holbert car running third, the Busby car, Derek Warwick now driving in the 4th position. Then comes the Jaguar in 5th. A tremendous crowd is here assembled in the infield. They don't sit in the grandstand for this one. They're all inside watching the action live here at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Man of the moment, maintaining 3rd place, the Al Holbert car for Derek Bell and Al Unser Jr., that Porsche 962, as we bring you live the 24 Hours of Daytona. Here on the Superstation is whipping up, trying to make a move, get himself closer to Bruce Leven and counter for 2nd place. Meanwhile, the Jaguar of Bob Tullius has pulled into 4th place, and the BF Goodrich number 67, the onboard camera car, Busby, Warwick, Brassfield, they have fallen back into the 5th position in this event. There you see the number 14, and here you are with the number 67, and there's the Jaguar, the 12-cylinder machine, just in front of him.
Well, of course, where the Jaguar really scores in a big race like this with a lot of traffic is it has a lot of low-end torque. It's got a 6.5-litre V12. The turbo Porsche has got more top-end power, but in and out of this traffic, the constant good torque of the V12 has obviously played its part.
Well, this is the pride of England, the Jaguar. It qualified 10th, and he's up to 4th place already, so he's in a good shot, and he's right there.
Remember, that was the car that made such a stout run last year, qualified up at the front of the field. They had a big fire in the night and lost the machine.
In fact, I was doing myself down the last time I came 3rd in this race was in a Jaguar with Bob Tullius in 1983. I came 3rd in one of those very cars.
And now the Jaguar has moved around Holbert in the number 14.
It's going very, very strong.
They're willing to gamble a little here. The Tullius Jaguar picking up still another spot, closing through the field, moving around number 14 to take 3rd. Ooh, that was the Warwick car, using up a little of the inside and almost using up the wall on the outside.
Well, Derek should be careful. You know, I don't know whether I'm seeing things, but I can't see 86 anymore unless I'm just imagining it. I may be looking in the wrong place, but I haven't seen 86 this lap. The Bruce Leven Bob Wollek car.
Bruce Leven's number 86.
Definitely not there, because here's the Jaguar. The Jaguar is now 2nd, Holbert's 3rd, and Derek Warwick's 3rd, 4th, I'm sure. Yeah, there we are. The 86 car, the Bob Wollek car, is definitely stopped somewhere. It's not in pit lane.
Well, 2nd place man apparently broken down on course.
Yeah, there's a lot of landscape out here, and sometimes a car can be broken down behind a tree and you won't see it.
Well, there's not many trees here
among this tremendous crowd that's here.
There is a tremendous
There's
crowd.
the battle, and that battle is taking place for 2nd place. The number 86 car is down. The 14 car has moved up with the 14 car and the 44 car as well. The Jaguar has moved around Al Holbert's team and finds himself in 2nd position.
The GTO lead car, number 62, has pulled into the pits.
Well, Drake Olson is still pulling out a lead. He's got nearly 24-second lead.
There you see Holbert now back to 3rd spot. The Jaguar running in 2nd, and the lead car continues to be that Dyson Olson Cobb machine. That lead continuing to build.
Well, I'll tell you, the Tullius Jaguar, he's weaving in and out of traffic at the same time he's picking up places, so that cat speed is running quick.
Let's go to Jerry Garrett on pit road.
Well, Ken, the report on the 86 cars is just slowing down. Has dropped a few positions, so you might not notice it in sequence right now. Bruce Leven, the car owner, says that they were running their TV pace earlier, about 1:48 a lap. Now they're down to their race pace, which is in the 150s, so there's no real problem on the car, according to Bruce.
Jaguar is up into second position, breaking up this Porsche domination in the front of the field with 14 laps completed on this 3.56-mile course, 9-turn at the Daytona International Raceway. And let's go to the, excuse me, Dave, we need to go over to Bob Varsha, who is standing by at the GM Goodrich News Center. He's got an update for us. Bob?
Thank you, Ken. Welcome, everyone, to our first GM Goodrich Motor Week Illustrated Racing Update of the year. Across the country from here at Daytona Beach, the National Hot Rod Association is opening its 86th season at the Pomona, California Winter Nationals. Rain washed out the first 2 days of qualifying, but they are qualifying now for tomorrow's finals. In Pro Stock, Joe Lapone out of Pennsylvania in an 85 Camaro was top qualifier, 7.54 seconds and over 182 miles an hour. Top fuel and funny cars yet to come there. In the Houston Astrodome, a rare motorcycle doubleheader is on tap. Tomorrow, the Stadium Supercross stars will be doing their thing. Right now, they're qualifying the Camel Pro Dirt Trackers, and Bubba Schobert on a Honda is out front. The off-road season is underway with the Parker 250 out in Arizona. The team of Dan Smith and John Ashcroft is out front by 6 minutes with the race 2/3 of the way through. There's been very little attrition, and that's odd for off-road. Here at Daytona, there have been a couple of bits of news. Patty Moise, who will drive the IMSA Kelly American Challenge Series next year in a Buick, has earned full sponsorship from IndyCar owner Jim Truman. And in NASCAR news, Tennessee promoter Larry Carrier has brought up all interest in the half mile at Bristol International Speedway, the site of 2 Winston Cup events this coming year. We'll have more racing news on our next edition of the GM Goodrich Motor Week Illustrated Racing Update. Be sure to stay tuned for Motor Week Illustrated at 5:35 Eastern Time here on the Superstation. Back to you, Ken.
And our live coverage will continue with 5-minute reports throughout the night on through the morning. Motor Week coming up very shortly. Lynn St. James is going to be standing by with Dave Despain for that today. At the present time, Dyson looks tough out here as that Olson Cobb car continues to lead. But the man that's eating up the ground is Bob Tullius, and this race has never treated him very well. 1984, he had a 3rd place finish in the event. He's run here a total of 9 times in this winter extravaganza. And last year was one of the worst when his car burned right to the ground up here on the far end of the track up on the east end.
Well, I see the Jaguar there is running very strongly. Both his brake lights are working. I noticed that Drake Olson has lost one of his brake lights, and if anybody in pit lane wanted to get nasty about it, they could make him come in and replace that. You're supposed to run with both brake lights on in this event.
Well, Tullius has got redemption on his mind. Instead of burning the car down, he's going to burn the track up.
Here he is. That is Bob Tullius out of Falls Church, Virginia.
86 in the pit. So much for the going slow on purpose routine. I think you'll find there's a problem with that car.
First to second, they're showing it 26 seconds now. The number 86 car on pit road. Bruce Leven's car is in. How much range does one of these 962s have in its current setup with a single turbo?
Just about 1 hour. 55 minutes to 1 hour around here for a 24-hour setup.
Let's go to the pits right now.
No, I'm going to do this little guy.
That's the Bruce Leven car, number 86. Pulled out here quickly. Made a run that looked like it was going to be stopped, and it has been slipping back through the field. Car out of the Great Northwest. Guy is in the garbage business out there. That garbage business would be very good to own a 962, Willie.
Well, you know, there's a little trash flying around in the neighborhood, so and he managed to pick it up and make money, so he can afford it.
Cash for trash.
Car number 86. Sliding back to the field. Now out of the top 10 is that machine, and you can see the problem is a bit serious.
Yeah, this is the sort of thing that in a 24-hour race you can put up with a short stop like this as long as what they're finding there is not too desperately serious. They're working on the turbocharger. Mighty hot. There's the intercooler. Oh, the pipe of the intercooler looks like it could have blown off, that rubber pipe. That's the part that carries the pressure. Yep. They're taking the pipe off. They're getting at the clips.
Oh, yeah, and the pipes are hot. You know, you see the gloves on their hands, you know.
Those pipes are hot. Little turkeys. It could be that the pipe is split and they're going to have to replace it.
In war dress, what does one of these 962s check out for these days? What would you pay if you were to take your checkbook over?
Take your checkbook over? Well, ready to race, it's going to be around about $260,000.
Well, mine would bounce. I don't think mine could handle it.
Well, there you see the work continuing on Bruce Leven's automobile, which had qualified outside the front row for this event, then had moved to the pole when the car that had been scheduled to come off that front running position, the Cyril Mandeverver qualified car, had a real problem and never made it. Transmission problem. There you see, I believe.
There we see, that's Bob Wollek, a man who this weekend had some tremendously good news. Jackie Hicks retired, and Bob Wollek was asked to drive the second Rothmans factory Porsche with Jochen Mass, alongside, of course, Derek Bell, the Star, and Hans Stuck.
Well, it's not too bad, Dave, because he hasn't got out of the car. If it was bad, he'd be climbing out now. You know, if they can get it done in 5 or 10 minutes, they'll still be in the ball game.
They seem to be just changing that pipe to the intercooler. Here's the Thierry Boutsen car, number 3, the Walter Brunn car from Germany. Come over here for a long way for nothing. He's had about 4 pit stops now, so they're way, way, way off the pace.
Well, the sun's shining, it's warm. It's a nice vacation anyway.
It certainly is warm today. The weather's picked up enormously. It's getting cloudy again now. I think there's a chance of rain in the forecast. And of course, these guys won't like it if it starts raining here when it gets dark, because the trouble with that is you can't see it coming. And the first you know about it is when you start sliding all over the track. And as we've already said, it's essential in a situation like that to change from the slick racing tires and put some proper grooved wet weather tires on. But it's kind of hard to do a weather check if you can't see the weather.
23-second advantage for the Dyson Olson Cobb car over Tullius. Bud Ballot-Léna. Chip Robertson running in the second position. And the Robinson car is trying to gain a little time back here.
Chip Robinson's a very fast driver. He did a lot of Super V racing on the Indy Series, and last year Bob Tullius picked him up to drive with him in the number 44 Jaguar, and he did some very, very good times. He's a good race driver.
Getting a pit report now on that car number 86.
Well, the 86 apparently had a loose pipe on the turbo, and the gases were, I think it's split, and they had to come in and change it because he was losing power.
Well, Chris Economaki may know more about that down in the pits. Chris?
Okay, David. No, what I was going to say is that the professionalism of these crews is very evident. When that Porsche 962 stopped, not only did its own crew go to work on it, but the Porsche people, the Andile people, and crew chiefs from other crews went down there to see what the trouble was, to make sure that it wasn't something that might happen to their car. Everybody is interested, particularly in the early stages of a race like this, as to what happens to a car similar to theirs. Back to you.
In the GT class, Mandeville stays out in front. Robles cars leading in GTO. And of course, it's Dyson, Olson, and Cobb overall. And this car is up to second place, trying to have a much better day this year than it did in the 24 hours a year ago.
Well, he seems to have got some mark on his right fender. Whether it's just the headlight cover blown off, I don't know. The Rob Dyson car's already turned his headlights on to warn back markers. Maybe their headlight cover's blown off.
We'll be back with more live action from the 24 hours of Daytona, 19 laps complete, after these messages on the Superstation.
Communication Center, Daytona International Speedway. Here's your leader, Rob Dyson, Drake Olson, Bryce Cobb, with Drake Olson at the keyboard, running away with this race to the tune of 16 or 17 seconds at this point. The story is right here at second spot. Bob Tullius, Claude Ballot-Léna, Chip Robinson running second. My cohort Bill Adam points out that he used to drive this car, that they've got an advantage we haven't talked about yet. That's that 12 cylinders fuel economy. And Adam boldly predicts that they'll move out front when the pit stops start. They'll be able to run longer on the available fuel. They're getting a challenge, meanwhile, from the Holbert Bell and Unser car, the car that has never won this 24 hours of Daytona. We're watching the Tullius car go by, and there is Holbert right there in hot pursuit. And that battle from second back to fifth for a while, and now between second and third has been the story of the race all day. Two of the hot European entries here have, we never like to say dropped out early in the event, because they can virtually rebuild one of these cars from the ground up in the course of 24 hours. But the car Zero, the machine of Giampiero Moretti, Randy Lanier, and Paulo Barilla, a heavy favorite, or one of the favorites coming into this event, has blown the engine. They were in the top 5 early on, and as we mentioned earlier, the car that started outside row 1, Thierry Boutsen, Oscar Larrauri, and Segala, have also had an alternator problem. They will fix that and get back into the race. That Jaguar that we're watching right now is an interesting story for one of the members of our broadcast team here today. We wondered about the difference, what it's like to sit in a luxurious production automobile and to compare it with the racing version of that machine. So we turned none other than our Chris Economaki loose on that story, and here's what he brought us back.
The Group 44 Jaguars in the 24 hours are special in many ways, but actually they're an evolution of a production car, the XJS Jaguar. And when you've reached that point in life where you have your gold watch and your gold change, believe me, the way to go is with a $38,000 Jag. $38,000 for the other one. This is a lot more expensive and a lot less roomy. The steering wheel is big, covered with hand-stitched leather, and has a big cat staring you in the face. No cat in the center of this steering wheel. It's a lot smaller, no leather. All it does is the job. A magnificent interior, furled M side rails, fascia, and a commodious glove box. We don't know what the matter with Hurley Haywood is. This seat is custom fitted for him. There's no cushions, it's not spacious, it doesn't recline, and it's not leather. It makes me think of Preparation H. There's no glove box and no trim, unless you call the one Hurley Haywood got at the barber this morning. A smooth 3-speed automatic transmission that anyone can handle. The transmission costs as much as the Jaguar. 5 speeds, hard to shift, and very noisy. An informative dashboard, a tachometer, no idiot lights here, an ammeter, gas gauge, oil pressure gauge, water temperature gauge, and a speedometer with my kind of numbers goes to 160. 7 instruments, all functional. Some of them are put in cockeyed. The reason being that when all is well, the needles are straight up and down. And what a radio. 21 control buttons, 6 stereo speakers throughout the car, a cassette. You can get anywhere in the world on this one. Ah, the radio. For $10,000, no stereo, no cassette, just this, 2 speakers, 1 for each ear, and 1 station, the boss, telling you to go faster. An onboard trip computer with all these control buttons. If you want to know how far you've gone or how far you can go, how much fuel you've used, the answer is there. Incomparable. And this Jag doesn't have a trip computer, unless you count the 15 people in the pits that are keeping track of every little thing that goes on. There's something to say for both Jaguars. I think I'll take one of each.
Just at the entrance of the first turn, David.
It sure did. He just went down across the start-finish line here, and smoke was pouring out, and suddenly...
is that the Argo?
The right rear tire. That's down at chicane on the back straight.
Now this is directly in front of us at the start-finish line. A tire came out, and I believe that some of the panel came off the car as well, and is lying here between the 200 and 100 yard markers into the very first turn area.
There's a piece of smoking rubber off the O2 car.
Well, it looks like a Mazda.
That's the Creda.
That's the one that we had trouble earlier.
That's right, yeah, it came in on the first lap.
So the first caution is out, and I believe it's all the way around the track at this time, after there is debris lying just at the entrance to the first turn.
So this will probably bring in a rash of pit stops, because we're getting up to pit stop time anyway.
Or any advantage the drivers can get during a caution, they'll be heading for the pits and to refuel under the caution and get back on.
Okay, they're making a driver change here on the Derek Warwick car. In the GTU class, Mandeville and Smith are leading. The Rodas car is leading in GTO with the Elliott Petty red car running in second. And in GTP, Dyson, Olson, Cobb are going out in first, with the second place belonging to Tullius, Robinson, Ballot-Léna. In third place, Holbert, Bell, Unser. And in fourth place, it's Busby, Brassfield, and Warwick. So that's the rundown on GTU, GTO, and GTP as driver changes begin to take place. We're seeing one right now on the in-car camera car as Derek Warwick is climbing out of the automobile.
Derek pointing drastically at the windscreen, because we could see there how the windscreen was getting all spotted up.
We'll be back with more live coverage here on the Superstation of the 24 Hours of Daytona shortly. Stand by.
That was the car that seemed to shut down all
the BF Goodrich car, number 67, continuing here in the 24 Hours of Daytona.
TA Radials, built for you to take on the road. And by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution. And by Champion, nothing sparks like a champion. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. The 24 Hours of Daytona is brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radials, makers of the world's most complete line of high-performance car and truck radials. built for you to take on the road. And by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution. And by Champion, nothing sparks like a champion. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you.
The most dramatic race in the history of the 24 Hours of Daytona. That's what it's culminating in right now. 3 cars within 1 lap of each other. I'm Ken Squire. This is David Hobbs. And David, I know how much you'd like to be out there involved in this one as we get down to it. It was 1971 when last we had a close one here, and that was 1 lap. That was the year when the Pedro Rodriguez car, Jackie Oliver, the Porsche 917, defeated the Ferrari by a single lap about, I think it was a 3.8-mile course at that time. Well, now we have 3 cars contending for the lead.
Well, it certainly has turned into a bit of a knockdown, drag-out affair for a 24-hour race, and I'm sure that all these drivers will be jolly glad when they see that checkered flag come up at 3:30, because this is not what you want to be doing in a 24-hour race.
Well, here is the man of this hour, the final hour. What a dramatic turnaround for him after the problems that they have been having in the past year and the past years. Al Holbert is aboard his own Porsche 962, and he is out in front. The second place car is now being shown as the Jim Busby car. There you are, riding with that Busby car. Derek Warwick is at the controls at this moment for Jim Busby, who's put this team together. One of his cars was destroyed this morning in a horrendous wreck. Jan Lammers is all right after that crash. And the third place car is the Preston Hen, the defending champion, A.J. Foyt car. That one has fallen back some. Danny Sullivan, a co-driving on that machine. Here you are with Derek Warwick as we bring you live coverage in this final hour. And that Vision Group camera's been with us the entire 24 hours. We had some dramatic pictures during the night. And here they are holding on for second place, just a lap down to the leaders.
Well, just as he comes up to this point here, this car's reaching just close on 200 miles an hour as it goes over that stripe. And you can just imagine the wear and tear on the brakes and transmissions as he hauls that car down to turn 1, which is really a pretty slow turn. You're looking at maybe 60 miles an hour through all 5 gears down into first, and then a violent acceleration up to turn 2. And this is a very tough course on the equipment, as we've seen from the attrition. Only 19 cars left.
Jim Busby, a man who came to sports car racing thanks to TV star Dick Smothers, who introduced him to it back when he was a drag racer, and he's really taken to it well. They've never won this race. Busby's car was a third-place finisher here a year ago. Then they had a first and second-place finish at Riverside, California. Their second place right now is the best they have done in this 24-hour race. They have led 3 times in the course of the event, or rather the car number 14 has led. This car led a considerable amount of time during the night, and now they find themselves in second place and squaring off to go after the leader.
And our leaderboard at the moment shows in the lead there Holbert, Bell and Al Unser Jr., number 14. Second is that Busby, Brassfield, Warwick, Jochen Mascar. They've all had a go at driving that, number 67. Third is A.J. Foyt, Danny Sullivan, Arie Luyendyk. And fourth, of course, overall, is the first GTO car driven by Bruce Jenner and Scott Pruitt, who's put up a magnificent performance in his first real season of this type of racing.
Klaus Ludwig, who was the third driver, I believe he's already left the track to fly back to Europe, the car that's leading in GTO, the red numbering here in the graphics, and he won't even be around for the finish, the word is.
I thought I saw him at the hotel this morning. I nearly asked him what had happened to the car.
We have a fire in the infield. That has been part of the regular business of this race. Someone overzealous with their lunch, and that looks like it could be a more serious problem than some we've had today.
Well, we've had some serious problems. We've had some fairly light moments in this race, as usual. And, of course, unfortunately, all these 24-hour races are kind of a lady luck draw. It really is the luck of the draw. And every one of these cars that's leading on this lead lap has had some sort of a major problem. And they've all relatively luckily got away with it. One of our real highline cars came in and was out, completely out, in 6 laps with a distributor failure. I mean, a $250,000 car is out because the distributor rotor broke. And that's the sort of thing that can happen in 24 hours.
This car number 14 at one time was 124 miles down. GTO leader Stahl, that's the Brenner car. And they're bringing the Bruce Jenner car back now.
Now that could be a disaster for them. They have a pretty substantial lead in their class, so they can afford to hang around for quite a long time.
They're reporting a severe oil leak on that car, and I believe Scott Pruitt, the former champion of go-karts, was at the controls at the time.
Well, they're going to have to try and get that car. I don't think they have enough lead that they can just sit out the last 40 minutes of this race.
We are down to the final moments of this race. The battle is all up front of the prototypes, and it is 962. That's the number for Porsche that continues to dominate. First, second, and third. Let's go to the STP Pit Center. Here's Dave Despain.
Let's see if we can't help you who have just joined us for this the final moments of this great race to put all this talk of classes and cars into perspective a little bit. Those three cars that are running up front, as we've mentioned, $250,000, custom built for racing prototypes, wide open, space age technology, anything goes. They're called GTP cars. There's another division here. It's new in this form of racing. They're called Camel Lights, and these are the Camel Light standings. These two are GT cars, wide open racers, but they have a weight limit. They are, in effect, smaller versions of the big, wide open racers. It's a fast-growing class. Head of the class right now, Frank Rubino, Ray Mummery, and John Schneider, and they have moved that car up to 7th in the overall standings. They are 104 laps behind the leaders. Those are the kind of intervals we think of in endurance competition, but we'll get to the fact that we have 3 cars within a lap or 2 up front. Right now, the story here, Rubino, Mummery, and Schneider. We have, I believe, one of those lead trio coming on pit road. One of the leaders, the 67 car, is coming on pit road. Dave? And that would seem to be the story that supersedes this one.
Dave, that's number 67. The BF Goodrich car is on pit road. The third place automobile, Derek Warwick, has been driving.
I think there's Derek Warwick getting out. I think they changed drivers. I would have thought that was kind of unnecessary at this stage of the game with only just 40 minutes to go.
Here they are. That's a 17-man crew to maintain those 2 cars. And what a dandy job they've done. New second place, maybe car number 8, the Preston Hen car, defending champions and 2-time winners of the 24 hours. AJ and Sullivan done a great job with that car and keeping it up there throughout this, as well as Ari Lyondike, the Indy Rookie of the Year. Let's go back to Dave Despain.
Let's look at another of our divisions of competition here as one of those GTP prototypes up front has trouble. GTU, these are small engine sports cars. The Mazda RX-7, the dominant brand here. And the dominant drivers, old familiar hands at Daytona. They've excelled in this race. They had to change the transmission. They're still sitting at the top of the heap. Dennis Shaw, Amos Johnson, and Jack Dunham leading their division over the Reed, Hogdahl, Kendall, and Rinsler entry, 8th in the overall standings, and 110 laps behind the front-running car in the overall standings. We go over here to GTO, story changing even as we speak. These guys, Bruce Jenner, the Olympian, Scott Pruitt, who's turned in such a great drive, Klaus Ludwig, the international star, oil leak in the final hour. Here's your new leader. It's car number 64. The guys who have emerged to surprise are Lanny Hester, Maurice Hassey, and Lee Mueller. That's a Ford Mustang. They've been the guys that have dominated in that GTO division. Those are the big engine American Thunder cars. Here's your GTP battle. What a story. 3 Porsche 962s, all that remain of a fleet of 9 that came here to dominate this race to try to win it for the 9th year in a row for the German brand. 6 of them have failed. These 3 are still at the top of the heap. They're in a dogfight. They have pulled out all the stops. They've cranked up the boost, wound in all the horsepower, and like sprinters headed for that finish line tape, they're trying to decide it in the last few minutes of this 24-hour battle. Let's go to the leader's pit right now, Jerry Garrett.
Well, Dave, we're going to have one final bit of drama here on pit road in the last half hour of this race. Al Holbert is going to come in unexpectedly for one more fuel stop. I think maybe they're just going to be on the safe side.
Let's go to Chris Economaki.
Okay, you're looking at Derek Warwick. Until a few moments ago, the second place driver. His number 67 BFG Porsche has a broken seat. It's rattling around in the car. They've wedged it in position with driver's jackets. You can see the jackets hanging on the wall back there. Warwick got out of the car and he laid down on the pit wall. He said, I just couldn't go any faster. It's murder. And you can see he's been out of the car 3 or 4 minutes now, and he is exhausted. AJ Foyt, battling this car for second place, is still out there, but his car has a sticking throttle. All 3 lead Porsches are crippled. The number 14 car has a broken front sway bar. The number 67 car a broken seat, and the number 8 car a sticking throttle. It's been a tough day for these Porsches.
3 magnificent teams, 3 crippled cars. Charge, stumble, if you will, toward the finish line. You'll see the finish live here on TBS Sports. Stay tuned for the conclusion of the The dogfight continues. I'm Dave Despain, and you've seen this guy throughout the broadcast. Bill Adam, you got in there took your licks, had some fun, I understand, but now you're on the sidelines as a driver and back in your broadcast costume. What happened briefly?
Well, we did have a good time for quite a length of the race, but unfortunately one of the mechanical gremlins has beset so many of the good cars befell us too, and we went out with rear axle problems, Dave.
I want to find out more about your ride a little bit later on. Let me remind you now, second place has swapped. The Foyt Head Group, the IndyCar drivers, essentially back up into that second spot as Busby did make a pit stop. Moss, Warwick, and Brassfield, the remaining cars. The beauty of this event, Bill, we're so accustomed to 6- and 7-lap intervals up front. This is like a Grand National stock car race. We got 3 guys on the same lap. If you make a stop, you drop back a couple positions. This is a dogfight, and there's no way to predict it.
It really is just fantastic. We've been blessed now with a couple of really tremendous finishes in the last few years, but this has been the best I've ever seen. Anyone does still have the potential to win this race with just a minor problem by their competitors.
One of the things we'd like to do, and we've done it periodically throughout the broadcast, we have a little different look at it right now, is put you inside one of the front-running cars. The BFG car of Jim Busby has carried our onboard camera, and it's performed magnificently throughout this race. It's giving you some great pictures. Jim, climb in that car right now. I want you to take me for a quick lap around this place, or at least a portion of a lap with a slightly different view this time, Bill.
From a driving standpoint, I'm down the back straight right now, well over 200 miles an hour, hard into third gear as I go through the chicane, flat to the floor, gentle off the gas and ease into the right, back to the floor again to a left onto the banking. Up through fourth gear, which will stretch you to almost 175 miles an hour, into fifth, using all 800 horsepower the car can give.
One of the things that's happened here, all this jostling and mechanical beating that everybody else has suffered, that camera is a little cockeyed now from what we saw earlier. How does that relate to what you see when you're sitting in the driver's seat?
Well, I think something very important here that maybe the viewers aren't aware of is just the vibration that's evident inside a race car. You can watch the driver's helmet here taking a real beating. What this does is just literally to beat you to death during a race, and you get out your black and blue and really physically tired.
We see how close the car comes to the guardrail, how close it comes to the wall up on the banking from this angle. Are you aware of that? Do you use that outside retainer as a landmark and drive as close to it as you need to?
Yes, you can use it for a couple of different things. One, to keep track of exactly where you are on the circuit and how much track you have to use. You want to try and straighten out the corners as much as possible and thereby give the car a little extra room to slide as you come to the exit of a corner.
And when you misjudge it a little bit, you end up like so many of the cars that we've seen throughout this event.
Definitely.
The team car to this machine that we're watching from the onboard camera slammed into the guardrail when the driver of that machine, Jan Lammers, found himself with no brakes, and that's got to be a scary kind of a moment.
Oh, and it was just terrifying. It only takes a moment's lapse in your concentration for something like this to happen.
One of the things we noticed from this view is empty grandstands here, and it's important, I think, to note that the crowd for this race are die-hard road racing fans. And where are they, Bill? They're out there in the corners, aren't they?
Road racers sit in the infield. They love to watch the action down low.
Do you see them when you're driving the race? Are you aware of the people who line this racetrack by the thousands?
Yes, you are aware of them, but it's something that's not really critical to what you're doing at the moment. So you kind of file that away, and you sometimes remember certain incidents after race is over. But while it's going on, you really don't pay attention to them.
And some of them don't seem to be paying the least attention to what's going on out there. After 24 hours, of course, the diehards are all here, but in addition to being a great race, it's also a great party. The third place car now carrying our onboard camera, and Jim Busby could yet win this race because we have this tremendous battle that is raging here as 3 cars charge toward the finish line in the waning moments of this 24 hours of Daytona. It's been a fascinating weekend, but for all of us here in Daytona, indeed for all of us throughout America, there is another aspect of this weekend in Florida. Ken Squire will take a look at that.
We have perfect skies. We have a perfect race. We have 3 cars running the lead lap. Those dramatic pictures from Jim Busby's car, the number 67, as he took us around the course. It is a happening. It is a festival atmosphere always as we kick off Speed Weeks at Daytona. But no one in this bright, festive atmosphere can shake off the grayness that settled in after Challenger was viewed from the speedway heading down range on its final flight. There was a unique kinship developed between the Daytona racers and many of the astronauts over the years. From the days of the Mercury program, the astronauts often came north here to the Daytona Speedway to view the racers. And the racers, they traveled some 70 miles south down to watch the Cape and watch the astronauts in action. And both really seemed in awe of each other. A candlelight vigil was held for Challenger's crew on Thursday night, right here on the very beach where Frank Lockhart and Campbell and Seagraves and Barney Oldfield took us to new horizons in both time and speed. The next morning, a sculpture of sand and spray paint was still there. It will disappear with the tide, but will be remembered by all who stopped to contemplate it, as we will all remember those 7 people of courage and commitment to whom it was dedicated. Dave?
We're back live at Daytona International Speedway, where the drama of this race is winding down. The unpredictability of the 24 hours has played out over and over again, and here too the story is human beings relying on their machines, in this case to carry them to victory. And this man has never known that thrill. Al Holbert, who has struggled for so many years to try to win this race, who indeed has won everything there is to win in this form of competition. He's won the European equivalent of this event, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. 4 times he has reigned as the champion of Camel GT competition, but never in some 13 years of trying has he seen the checkered flag in the 24 Hours of Daytona. Last year, leading it for 23 hours and then failing in the final hour. But perhaps today, after trailing for most of the way, he will finally have his moment in the sun. And I would have to think, Bill Adam, that if indeed that transpires and the checkered flag falls on Holbert, who is indeed driving that final shift, that there are going to be an awful lot of people who are pleased to see that moment finally come. He's popular among his fellow racers.
Definitely so, Dave. That Al has had such an illustrious career and had so many Camel GT victories, but it really doesn't negate in any way the thrill that he and his crew are going to feel to win this particular race. It's a tremendous prestige victory for him.
He's very open about the fact that he doesn't like 24-hour races. He doesn't like these long enduros, and he particularly doesn't like to have one coming right at the opening of the season. He's such a practical man, such a businessman. We see his crew looking on and watching those Hoyer stopwatches and counting down the final moments here as he threads through some of the slower cars. For a guy who doesn't like what he's doing, they've certainly put in a yeoman's performance here this weekend.
Well, he's an incredible professional, and you know, I share his sentiments much as David does as well. A 24-hour race really isn't fun, and the fun of racing goes out and it becomes just work. It's nice to get it out of the way at the start of the year, though.
I don't want to completely try to put you in Al Holbert's shoes here, but he obviously wears 2 hats. He is the director of Porsche racing in America, and as such has responsibilities that go beyond that number 14 car. He's been very vocal about the change in the rules that have added weight to those Porsches this year, and that weight has, Chris Economaki is going to tell us a little later, has been a big factor. 6 of these cars are out of the race, but I suspect that even if he wins this race, when he goes back and puts his business hat on, he's still going to be at odds with some people about those rules and the effect that they've had.
Yeah, he really has to. Being the competition director of North America for Porsche, I think he has to take that stand, whether he really believes it or not. But certainly, it's awfully hard to argue against IMSA and their rules committee, because the Porsches have been just so dominant. They want to do what NASCAR does so often and try and establish a much closer form of racing with more types doing the winning.
Well, of course, the bureaucracy, the legislating of the competition is an important aspect of all this. Holbert on both sides of that issue now, as he doesn't like the rule but stands to win the race. Let's go down to his pit right now. Jerry Garrett is standing by.
Well, Dave, we heard an ominous noise a few minutes ago from the number 67 car. One of the 3 cars is contending for the lead in this race. Apparently he's got a broken header, broken head gasket, something like that. It's going to interfere with his ability to catch up and try and get A.J. Foyt for second place or contend for the lead.
Here is the onboard camera view, and again, that is coming from the 3rd place car as we measure intervals and watch the laps wind down here in this 24 Hours of Daytona, looking for an historic finish in this race. I think that is a given. I don't think but regardless of what happens with 3 contenders here, I think we're bound to have the closest finish in the history of this event. And the key, of course, is whether any of these 3 cars are going to have to make a final stop. As we make history here at Daytona, indeed there is some history being made elsewhere around the world of motorsports. There's an awful lot going on this weekend. Bob Barsha is standing by in the GM Goodrich Motor Week Update headquarters. And Bob, I understand we have records and other things to talk about.
We do indeed, Dave. We're going to change the scene a little bit from here at Daytona across the country to the California State Fairgrounds in Pomona, California, where the National Hot Rod Association is opening its season at the annual Winter Nationals. They've had rain. Final eliminations are underway as I speak, but there has been big news. Here's the sampling. 85 Top Fuel World Champ Joe Amato has run a new speed record regardless of class, 269.46 miles an hour. He backed it up. He is the fastest man in drag racing. Shirley Muldowney making a miraculous comeback from a devastating drag racing crash 19 months ago. Well on her way. We told you yesterday Shirley was the top qualifier. She was indeed bumped for that spot by Michigan's Dick LaHaye at 5.40 seconds. That's the second quickest ET in drag racing ever. Shirley did get a little bit of business anyway. She eliminated old rival Don Big Daddy Garlitz from right down the road here in Ocala, Florida. She beat Big Daddy in the first round. In other events, 85 champ Kenny Bernstein in funny cars, the top qualifier there at 5.62 seconds. It's cool and very fast in Pomona. Bernstein knocked off Rick Johnson in round 1. And in Pro Stock, Joe Lapone out of Pennsylvania is fastest, but the big news there is that 85 world champ Bob Glidden is seated 16th, dead in the field. We've got a lot more to come in a future edition of the GM Goodrich Motor Week Racing Update. Right now, let's go up to Ken Squire.
Time trickles down. Al Holbert not only trying to win this for himself and for his team, but for his family. His dad came here in the 60s, back in 1962 and 63. Both times wound up in 7th place. There have been 3 second-place finishes by the Holbert team, and they're trying to taste victory. Last year was theirs until not the 11th, but that 23rd hour, and here they are out in front, leading by 1 lap and 44 seconds over the second-place car of A.J. Foyt. More in a moment. Going back on the track, car number 14, Al Holbert, Derek Bell, Al Unser Jr. They made a quick 15, 16-second stop. Of course, it takes a while to whoa and come back up to speed. That single turbo beginning to turn as he comes onto the short straightaway leading to the international turn. He had a lap and 44 seconds as he came on. Foyt, Sullivan, Lyondike. Let's look at that pit stop again as car number 14 made a final foray onto pit road.
He comes in very fast, as you can see. He's lane. Comes in, pull-ups at his pit there. The crew all jump on the car, and they don't really do much. I think he must have had some oil on the windscreen, because that's really all they do. They're checking the engine bay fastening. See that guy's just checking the fastening. But obviously Al would have no idea of any problem back there. I think his main problem was just that the windscreen probably got some oil on it, and he didn't want to go rushing into any traffic at this late stage. Only stopped for 15 seconds.
1918 cars left of the 66 that started this event. Record speed being maintained over 105 miles per hour in the last report by the Holbert Bell Unser team. Again, second spot is the Foyt Sullivan team. Jim Busby's car maintaining 3rd, and the first car in the GTO class is now the Lanny Hester car. That is running 4th overall and 1st in the GTO class. The Jenner car is back in 5th place overall in the race.
Okay.
Here's car number 14 coming up on the banking. This race should end at 3:34 today. That's when they got the flag to start it. 24 hours back. It's 1 lap and 15 seconds, the interval between 1st and 2nd. So it's a wing and a prayer right now for Al Holbert at number 14.
Well, they're always a wing and a prayer, but it seems pretty sure that Al's going to pull it off, but of course nothing's sure till that old flag drops. It'll be interesting to see how the Busby car gets on catching up with the number 8 car to take 2nd spot.
Curtain coming down on this race. Let's go to Chris Economaki.
Well, there were 71 cars on the entry list for this 24 Hours of Daytona. About 65 took the green flag, and now there are fewer than 20 out on the track. And it makes pit road look like a town that's going downhill. The stores on Main Street are boarded up. Only one open here and there. And the fans, the vandals you might say, where it goes down, have filled up the pits to get a better look at the action that remains. It's the end of a long, long day for many of the contestants. Back to you.
The average speed is 105.174. The record for this race previously 104.162. That's the record, and they'd covered 703 laps. They're within 5 laps of that distance of 2,500 miles right now. That record was set a year ago by Bob Wollek, A.J. Foyt, Al Unser Jr. Kerry Boutsen was in that team. The second place car, here it is, the Preston Hen car, which has been a story unto itself in the past few years. Twice a winner and then a runner-up here in this 24-hour conclave. And here he is coming back up on the banking another time. car number 8, the Porsche 962. Team put together by Preston Henn. Did not get off to a big start, but it sure is around at the finish. Car that really came out topside in a hurry was the Dyson number 16. We'll review some of the moments of this race for you a bit later in our coverage today. Car number 8 being chauffeured by A.J. Foyt. They've turned the boost up on it, and they can't do that from inside the car anymore, David. They have to stop and do it.
That's one of the things that I've no doubt Al Holbert will be putting on his management hat and having a bit of a whinge about. It is a problem for the turbocharged cars because not only can you not turn the boost up, but if anything goes wrong, you can't turn it down either. So this can be a big problem. You can, of course, you can come into the pits and they'll do it for you externally, but a lot of the teams who are used to having a boost control in the car found it difficult in practice in the early part of this
Here
race.
comes the second place car on pit road. Could be a break for Busby and company, number 67. A correction. Came around the I thought he was coming down and slowing for the pit road.
No, that's that turn 1 complex, which is quite tricky these days. A lot of guardrail there, and it's not very wide.
Let's go to Dave Despain.
You know, Ken, it's fascinating as we watch all of these cars and the greatest gathering of international stars ever to come to this racetrack to think back a few years when something called IMSA, the International Motorsports Association, really wasn't in a position yet to live up to its name. But a funny thing has happened to IMSA along the way. Bob Varsha has the story.
In less than 2 decades, the International Motorsports Association, IMSA, has grown from a little-known series of 4 races for sports cars into a 10-month coast-to-coast caravan embracing more than 80 races in 7 different classes. In 1986, IMSA's premier series, the Camel Grand Prix, will pay out a record $1.5 million in prize money. The man behind all that growth is John Bishop, who has engineered IMSA's rise with the plain-spoken manner of his native New England.
Well, the plan was to be successful, and we decided to make a place for ourselves with GT racing, and we're glad that it has prospered as it has.
What it took was a simple formula, a race for every taste. Small front-wheel drive sedans, big-engine domestic muscle cars, and the fire-breathing prototypes that attract headlines through sheer power and speed.
Our audience is really, I guess, what they call upscale up there on 3rd Avenue. But, and it is. There's no question on that. So it's an affluent, upscale audience.
Beyond attracting fans, IMSA is attracting racers. For international stars like Belgium's Terry Boutsen, IMSA racing is the world's best.
I mean, there are a lot more cars here than there are in Europe, and the World Championship Series is not the best at the moment. I think IMSA is quite good, and I like to come here personally, and I think everybody enjoys it.
That sentiment is shared by Bruce Leven, who has been a part of IMSA racing from the beginning.
Well, no question, it's a premier road race in the world, road racing series in the world, and John Bishop has done probably, I can't say enough for it, an exceptionally good job.
We don't pretend the Camel GT to be a world championship. It is a U.S. domestic championship, and that's where our business is, so it's where it's going to stay as far as we're concerned.
17 minutes away from IMSA's proudest moment, its most exciting 24 hours ever. Let's go down to pit road and Jerry Garrett.
Well, Dave, the lead car has a fascinating pedigree. It's the 3rd 962 ever made. It's the first 962 ever to win a race, and it was almost destroyed last year at Sears Point. The team decided at the last moment to repair it instead of toss it away, but they sold it a month ago to Jim Truman. Truman drove it around and said, "This car isn't fit. I don't want it. You can have it back." It's leading the race now. Could win it.
I like a story like that. That's amazing. Let's go back up topside to Ken Squire.
Well, there you see it, car number 14 continuing to lead. The interval between 2nd and 3rd is now 15 and 4/10 seconds between the Foyt car and the number 67 car. Here's one that's slowing down on course. Number 35, one of the Camel Light cars coming down. David?
I wouldn't want to have Jochen Mass breathing down my neck 15 seconds behind with only 15 minutes to go, because Jochen Mass is one of the best long-distance drivers in the world. He's won many of these sort of races.
The car is from Puerto Rico. That's that Porsche Royale Gonzalez car in Febles. And that car, running in the Camel Light class, is in 2nd place in the Camel Light for the smaller prototype cars.
That just shows how, until the flag drops, you're never safe. I mean, it looks like their fine run could come to an end.
In the early morning hours on lap 423, this number 14 car coasted to a halt near the chicane. Everyone thought it was over. All hope appeared lost. Driver Al Unser Jr. said they hoped repairs could be completed in time to perhaps finish 3rd or 4th. And here they are. Willie T. Ribbs has rejoined us here as we get down to the final moments of this race. This is as good an endurance race as we've seen, Willie.
This is good. I've been out on the track. In fact, I was late getting to the booth because I've been out scouting. AJ, this is AJ's alley. It's right at the end. AJ's a showman. He likes to turn the crowd on. It's AJ versus Mass for 2nd place right now, right to the finish.
All right, let's find out what is Chris Economaki doing? We haven't heard from him from some time.
Probably tasting wine or something down there.
No, I've been winding up my stopwatch, David, but right now, Jochen Maas has suddenly found some speed in that number 67 car, and he's catching AJ Foyt at the rate of 3 seconds a lap. We may have a Garrison finish for 2nd before this day is out. Back to you.
Now, though I wouldn't want to be AJ being hounded down by Jochen Maas, I wouldn't particularly want to be Jochen Maas trying to get past AJ Foyt with just about 5 minutes left of a 24-hour race either.
AJ has a great car coming back here for the Daytona 500. This event begins Speed Weeks at the Daytona International Speedway. Next Saturday, Buddy Baker says he's going around this 2.5-mile tri-oval in an Oldsmobile at 207 miles an hour. He said that's what it's going to take for the pole. He kind of feels it may be him.
And there's going to be a lot of cars doing between 203 and 207. It's going to be a real bang-up day next Sunday for qualifying.
Here we are with car number 67. This is your 3rd place car. What a story here. Jim Busby just doing a magnificent job with this machine. A little smoke pouring out there.
A little bit of smoke. Also, right on the left front corner in front of the wheel, there's something flapping. I don't know whether the bodywork's coming away. You can't see it so well here, but as you have that head-on shot as it goes down the pit straight here, there's something definitely coming loose in the left front corner.
Again, their 2nd car being driven by Jan Lammers crashed. 44-year-old John Morton is part of that team. Busby was telling me, he says he's the rock center of this team, and he said everybody kind of gathers around him. A lot of the people that are responsible for the car, Bob Kilpatrick not here today, he's watching on television. There's 17 people from the tire company that support it, as well as the 17 that work out there in Laguna, California. And they continue 2 cars for a 19-race series with 17 guys. That's really being efficient.
Well, there we see one of that 17, Jochen Maas, hounding down AJ Foyt, and we're going to be back with the final coverage of this fantastic 24-hour race from Daytona Beach very shortly after these commercial messages.
Class. That's the Lanny Hester car from Nashville, a Nashville team here. Lee Mueller is involved, Morris Hasse as well. And there you see the standings on GTO. Scott Pruitt teamed with Bruce Jenner. And earlier with Klaus Ludwig maintaining the 2nd position. They've had their problems, transmission and oil leak and so on the 07 car. It's the Hester car, living out every man's dream of coming and winning here in this endurance race. And there is a little bit of something for everyone in this event.
Nothing much to me, except being up here with you, Ken, but who could want more than that?
All right, now you're inside with Jochen Maas in the BF Goodrich Porsche 962 as it chugs along here at the finish, trying to close on the number 8, being driven at the present time by AJ Foyt for 2nd place. And the interval is 6 7/10 of a second between Foyt in 2nd and this Jim Busby car maintaining the 3rd position.
There you see him swinging around the International Horseshoe. They probably turned that boost up. Derek Bell smiling to himself as he's got a lap and 50-odd second cushion on that duel coming up for 2nd spot. We've only got, what, just over 9 minutes left of this race.
Remember last year when it was Derek Bell making all the electrical changes? Got himself a Union card down here as he tried to keep the car going, but could not keep it up in front.
He's just done a 6-month electronic course. Didn't need it this year.
Let's go to Chris Economaki.
Okay, yeah.
Chris?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to talk to Derek Warwick about the problems that his co-driver is having in that car with that broken seat. Derek, you look a lot more refreshed now. What's it like in there with the seat the way it is?
Well, he's doing a remarkable job, because when I was in the car, it was just impossible to drive. It was moving about sideways, and it was fully extended, and you just had to go on tiptoe. So, I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, you think he's going to catch him?
For sure. We've got 2nd now.
Okay, Derek Warwick, co-driver car number 67, talking about how it's driving with that broken seat, back topside.
Your countryman's predicting 2nd place here.
Yeah, he is my countryman, and poor old Derek's been a bit shuffled around in Formula One this year. He should be Grand Prix driving this year, but he's not, and maybe we'll see a bit more of him as in a regular IMSA driver in the Camel GT series in 1986, which would be great for the series.
Final moments as you're inside that car that is running in third, closing on A.J. Foyt. There's the leader another time. Al Holbert holding on, leading by a lap plus. He tries to get this one to stay together. It was in this hour. They had all those electrical problems and had to sit it out a year ago. The interval is shown at 8 2/10 of a second now. AJ doesn't want to give up that spot.
No, he's responded okay, and he's really going to have his work cut out to gain 8 seconds in about 7 minutes.
Jerry Garrett?
Well, Ken, if Derek Bell looks especially overwrought in this thing, he's thinking that he has finished in this race second 4 times, and his teammate Al Holbert at least twice. So they're hoping to shed that bridesmaid role, but these last few minutes are just heart-rending.
They don't know what bridesmaid is. At least they finished second 4 times.
Okay. Apparently less than 3 minutes left, we're told, to finish this race up with car number 14. Holbert out in front. Staying there, steadying that car. Derek Warwick now driving to bring out this car with the checkers, hopefully this afternoon in the 24 hours of Daytona. Second place taking a look back here for second and third place. And you see here the number 67 car, that's the second place car. And then the third place car that is the third place car, Busby. Derek Warwick driving, trying to close on A.J. Foyt in second. 8 2/10 of a second, separating these 962s.
Ken, I think one of the things that we need to review a little bit here, perhaps, is the issue of strategy. We talked so much about it when we went on the air 24 hours ago. We need to, I think, look back to the decisions that crews and drivers have to make during the running of this race. Notably Al Holbert, but in the case of all of these teams. Bill Adam, as you join us here at the STT Pit Center, we saw it throughout this event. A car would take the lead. Busby had it for a long, long time. The Foyt crew, Foyt, Hand, Sullivan, Lyondike had it for a while. And now late in the race, the Holbert, Bell, and Unser team have it. But in every case, they had problems. They came into the pits. They had to make major repairs. When they went back out onto the racetrack, they had to decide on the strategy. Here is the guy that you're seeing in the upper right there. That is Bob Holbert. That is Al Holbert's father. He was the champion of American road racing back when the series was called the U.S. Road Racing Championship, appropriately enough, and it was the premier prize in American competition. Bob Holbert won it, and he is now one of the key strategists in the Holbert pit. He and Junior put their heads together in the middle of the night. When they went back out onto the racetrack, they said, look, we're not going to try to catch up. We're going to dial the boost at the level we want. We're going to dial in a lap time of, I think it was about 1 minute and 50 seconds, and we're going to run, and we're going to hope that we finish. It's a strategy that looks like it's going to win the race. But the point that I have for you, Bill, and I'd like you to comment on it, is how do you make those decisions? How do you decide 6 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours into the race when you've lost 6 or 8 or 10 or 100 laps? How do you decide how fast to go when you go back out there?
Well, there's a certain amount of guesswork involved. Like some teams, the Dyson team, for example, I think took a bit of a risk, which unfortunately didn't pay off for them by running an extremely hard pace at the start of the race, and they subsequently suffered a fair bit of damage to their car through a crash.
And I'll interrupt just long enough to note that in our first show, you predicted that within the first 15 or 20 minutes of the race. You said he was bouncing off curbs and stuff. He was in trouble. They later hit the wall. Go ahead.
Very, very unusual to do that in a race like this, but Al Holbert has been around for such a long time and has shown his brilliance time and time again. I think he's assembled the absolute cream of the crop for all his people. His co-driver is a world champion, his crew chief and all his crew are so experienced with this car, they know exactly what they can get out of it.
Go ahead.
You certainly run into certain situations where unknowns can make a difference in the race. But by and large, if you play on probabilities, it's almost impossible to beat the Holbert strategy.
Well, the genius, I think, is the ability with 6 or 8 hours to go in the race to take a very small dart and throw it at a very big board, keeping in mind that they can run anywhere from a qualifying speed here of a lap of 1 minute 39 up to what would be an average mid-race lap for a front-running car? It'd be at least 10 seconds off that pace.
Yeah, I would imagine a 10-second gap would be very accurate, Dave. If you can run from a 147 to a 153 range for the entire race, you could probably average it out, just taking today's average speed and see that it would be in that bracket someplace.
And they've dialed that in perfectly. They picked their pace, keeping in mind, too, that that car has a broken sway bar in the back. They broke that sometime in the middle of the night. It was one of the things that forced them to make the decision to run conservative, save the car. They didn't want to take the time to try to fix it. They chose instead to simply back the pace down. But I think the thing that is most fascinating here in the STP pit center as we watch all those decision makers, well, we got a car in trouble out there.
We may have a red flag coming out here in a pace car incident.
And that looks like the second place car in the GTU division. I believe that is the number 75 Reed, Hogdahl, Kendall, and Rinsler machine that has come to a stop. And you're exactly right. The car has stopped out there on the racetrack, and that might bring out a yellow flag.
I think it will, Dave.
That'll be an anticlimactic finish to this race, which will officially end at 3:34. It was about 4 minutes late getting underway here today. To make that final point, Hulbert made the right decision. Hulbert dialed in a speed for himself, for his co-drivers. His crew backed it up with the right logistical support. They predicted when they were 7 or 8 laps down, if we run this speed to the finish, we might have a shot at it. And lo and behold, he appears to be right by an interval of less than a couple of minutes here, because that looks like that's going to be the interval at the finish of this race. Although it may tighten up if that yellow flag comes out. We'll see a parade finish, which would be an anticlimax here. There's the driver climbing out.
I think with the driver getting out right now, Dave, one of the rules in IMSA here at the Daytona Speedway is that if there is a car on the surface of the track, rather than the apron itself, they will put out a pace car. So we may have the race finishing under this situation.
That is the exit of the chicane, by my view. Would you
Bill?
It appears to be.
Bill, there's no sign of a caution flag being thrown here at the present time. We're looking down at the flag stand, and that Mazda RX-7 lies there, the California car. And with this close to the finish, I question now if they're going to drop a yellow on this.
I can't believe they would. A minute and a half to go. By the time the pace car got fired up and pulled out, it would all be over anyway.
Well, they could use the yellow in that one corner, and it would, do the trick.
Apparently that's what they're doing. A.J. Foyt's car maintaining second. Here's the Hulbert car, still leading. I believe he'll get in just about one more lap. Here he is to the line, and I would think this would be the final lap for Al Hulbert. Here you see him coming into turn number 1. David, you've been here trying to win this race for years. You've been trying to win Le Mans. You must feel star-crossed about this. You came here with a brand new, potent BMW. Everybody said it was a potential pole sitter.
Well, it was, and it will be as the season unfolds. We're going to take a 2-car BMW team down to Miami in just a month and try and put it on the pole and try and win that one. But it was very, very disappointing. And it's not the first time it's happened to me here, because I was at the very, very first Daytona endurance race in 1962, and I didn't finish that one either.
Well, I'll tell you who else was here. The guy in second place, A.J. Foyt, was here in 62, and he was out in the first 2 laps. Then in 1967, remember when he won Indy for the 3rd time? He also won Le Mans that year, so he's got a little road racing experience.
He's got some good results under his belt,
David, we're now being told that there are 2 laps from here to the finish. That's the latest word, 2 laps to the finish. Now, does that get communicated down to their pit area?
I'm sure they'll be able to ask the IMSA officials, must know, yeah. They'll have one in their pit, and they'll ask him where. And at this stage, this is when the heart is really in the mouth. I mean, Al Hulbert's out there just hoping desperately to get these 2 laps rattled away. No reason why they shouldn't, but you just never know. Into that chicane for the last but one time.
So that's the old Dean. Any wise sayings here at Kanamaki as we get down to the end of this one?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm here in Victory Lane counting medals, caps, and gifts and so forth. The security guards are here. It's going to be a wild scene. This has been probably one of the toughest 24 hours ever. I don't think that any car on the track right now would finish if this was a 26-hour race. They're all limping or gimping around this racetrack. It's really been tough on man and machine. Back to you.
Well, if that Lowenbrow car's got a broken rear sway bar, they must be having to take it very steady in the turns. Otherwise, they could really get rid of their front tires. It must be putting a lot of strain on their front tires with no rear sway bar.
Final lap right now for car number 14. Just went into his final lap. There you see Derek Bell perched up on the wall watching as car number 14 goes into turn 1 through that turn 2 area, which is where they
over the curb there. It'd be great, wouldn't it? Get pushed off by GTO Toyota the last lap.
And he's gathering up the second place car here. Down a lap, as we understand, is the number 8, the Preston Head car. Foyt made a real run. Lyondike did a great job for them, the Indy car Rookie of the Year. And of course, that Sullivan lad did a marvelous job. He's been here twice before. Not exactly.
Sullivan's done a lot of road racing too. He did a lot of Can-Am. He was a very successful Can-Am driver before, and Formula One too. He drove well in Formula One for at least one season.
Porsche's angry. They don't like the rules, the extra weight that was added to them, but here they are again, first, second, and third.
It's tough to legislate against Porsche, and they do make racing cars, and they make them right, and there's just no getting away from it. It doesn't matter what you do with the rules, they're always going to be in the forefront.
Back they go into the banking for the final time in the 1986 24 Hours of Daytona. There you see the A.J. Foyt car pulling up, settling down to the end of this one.
He wants to hang alongside there because he wants to be in the, obviously in the winning photograph.
Remember back in the early days when Ferrari came in here and lined them up side by side, three abreast? The days of Scarfiotti and Bandini, and I believe Pedro Rodriguez was part of that picture.
And then, of course, he drove here in the Porsche in 71. And hopefully that we'll see the end of the Porsche dominance of this class of racing in 1986. They come up to the flag line.
All right, coming down to finish it. And for Al Hobart, all those years of effort, those second place runs, 76, 80, and 85, about to end. Al Hobart's car, number 14, will win the most prestigious sports car race in the Western Hemisphere. The 24 Hours of Daytona belongs to Warrington, Pennsylvania team, Al Hobart. And the drivers he collected for this race brought him home a victory in the one that has always escaped him. Derek Bell and Al Unser Jr., also responsible for the driving chores, and a great crew on that team, has given them the one thing they were seeking. Their victory in the IMSA championship last year was one thing. This has always been in their craw, however, to win this race.
Well, it certainly gets the season up to a flying start too, because there's a lot of valuable points at stake, and they proved they can finish these huge long distance race. The shorter races, they'll feel very, very confident as they go into the 86 season now.
We'll meet the drivers who have gone the distance for 24 hours and check the records, give you all the particulars on that in various categories as we see Derek Bell shaking hands with some of the folks along pit road. We'll be back with more from the 24 Hours of Daytona in Victory Lane after these messages. Victory Lane at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Let's join him there.
Well, Al Hobart is a tired-looking man. His car begrimed, greasy, as he eases out of the cockpit now with a towel around his neck, rubber dust all over him. The first order of business is the SunBank medal that he's getting for victory in the competition today. Oh, boy. Worn out, Al?
Anxious.
Here's Al Unser giving his co-driver a kiss. Where's your third man? Where's Derek Bell? Come on up here, Derek. Let's get a look at you here, Al. Are you surprised?
Lord, am I surprised. I mean, we were so far out of it, and just perseverance, and the other guys had their problems later, and Derek kept at it, and Al kept at it to the point of hurting his foot, and the guys kept at it, and we made great repairs of some mistakes in preparation, so I guess it balanced out.
Al, it's been 12 years or thereabouts since you came to Daytona. It's been a long try, hasn't it?
It sure has. I've been second, I don't know, at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 times, and last year was a big disappointment for the guys, of course, and it's just wonderful for Lowenbrow and Hobart Racing, and of course all the people associated, my wife at home, of course, her prayers and people at home, you know, it makes a difference.
Well, we want to congratulate you. We want to talk to some of your colleagues. Come on over here, Al. How's it compare with the Indy 500?
Well, I don't know. We haven't won it yet, so I don't know.
I mean the race.
There's really no comparison. There's so much more work here for a driver and for the crew and everything. It's so much work, and it's great. It's great to win.
What about your feet? I understand that they gave you trouble partway through.
Yeah, this morning my right leg from when I broke it in the IndyCar at Elkhart Lake in August, all the ligaments and everything didn't heal all the way, and come 10 o'clock this morning it just finally gave out on me. But as far as last night and all that, it was fine.
You were in the car when it quit out there on the track. What exactly happened?
The throttle cable just broke. It just came up on the banking and stood on the gas, and the pedal just went to the floor and no engine.
Okay, we'll be back in Victory Lane in a moment, but now let's go to my colleague Jerry Garrett with A.J. Foyt.
Well, it looked like we had it locked, and then we lost it, and then we had it locked, and we lost it. So that's a 24-hour race, so
Al Holbert knew that frustration last year, I guess.
Well, yes, and the year before, you know, we run second, and it just, that's the breaks the game. So out of 4 races, I don't guess we can holler 2 firsts, 2 seconds.
Well, teammate Arie Luyendyk, you did a lot of driving out there. The Flying Dutchman did okay.
Yes, I enjoyed myself, and really have to say that I'm impressed by AJ. He did a fantastic job in the end, and I think he pulled us through to second place. You know, the car was running beautiful all night. I enjoyed the night riding, and he just did a fantastic job in the end, but it was too bad the throttle stuck.
Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing more of these drivers. Chris Economaki has more from Victory Circle.
Okay, I'm down here with Derek Bell, who's being posed in various photographs. Got a moment here, Derek?
Yes, sure.
You're a fitness freak.
You wouldn't believe it, would you?
Al Holbert's huffing and puffing, and Al Unser's feet hurt. Where are your aches and pains?
I was absolutely rigid with cramp about an hour and a half ago.
Really?
Yeah, when I got out the last time, it was had been very hot, and I'd been driving extremely hard, and I was just absolutely destroyed.
Derek, you're an old 24-hour veteran, Le Mans and all the rest. How tough was this one compared to the previous ones
I've
you've been in?
been second here 4 times, and I never ever won it. And this was the hardest 24-hour race I've ever had in my life.
Including Le Mans?
Including Le Mans. I mean, Le Mans isn't hard because you have that long 4-mile straight to recover. But this place here is just unbelievable. I mean, it's hard, hard, hard. And we were chasing from the end of the first hour. We were going flat out all night, lapping in the same times we did in the daytime. And the car stood up to it.
Derek, you mentioned earlier that the front sway bar had been broken and that it made driving difficult. Can you tell us a little bit the way the car handled under those circumstances?
Well, it happened, I think, while I was out there, because I was going down the back straightaway, and I went over some ripples on the banking, and the car just rolled all over the place and weaved, and I thought I was going to take into the wall. And it felt really very, very bad indeed. And then I carried on and thought, well, maybe it was just the fact I couldn't see very well, and was because of the oil on the windshield. And perhaps that was the reason, therefore I couldn't pick out the right line for the corners. And in fact, all you got was a tremendous amount of roll oversteer, which meant the back kept rolling around as you changed direction. It just sort of flicked and rolled, and then it started to slide if you weren't careful. It was really most unpleasant. And I think that was one of the reasons I felt so ill, you know, was that I was pitching about so much.
It's quite a handful. Well, congratulations on winning it, Derek Bell. And now back to Jerry Garrett.
Well, Jim Busby, your car gave us 24 hours of beautiful pictures, but it didn't quite finish where you wanted it to.
Well, we had some axle bolt problems. They kept backing out, but the team did a terrific job, and the tires held up great, and these guys here were terrific. I mean, I think we had all the ingredients. We just didn't have the luck.
You thought you had second right there till the end.
Looked like we were catching up, but we had a seat broken in the car, and Akin was being tossed around in the car so much he could just barely reach the brake pedal, so he finally just said, look, this is enough.
For the want of a nail, a horse was lost, or war was lost. What do they say? Let's go back to Chris Economaki with more from Victory Circle.
Well, we're in the crowd here working down to the Camel Light winner. We'll be having a word with him in just a moment, but just give me another 30 seconds, please.